Hello, Weil Alumni. I'm David Lender, co-chair of the firm's Litigation Department and a member of the firm's management committee. We are fortunate at the firm to have an incredible alumni network. And today I have the pleasure of spending some time with my good friend and former partner, Bruce Meyer. Bruce is the Deputy Executive Director of the Major League Baseball Players Association, widely viewed as one of the strongest professional player associations in the world. Bruce was the lead negotiator in negotiations for the union against Major League Baseball, including in connection with the most recent lockout of the players in 2022, and was directly involved and led the negotiations for the most recent historic collective bargaining agreement for minor league players. Bruce spent 30 years at Weil as a litigator, where he was an integral member of our sports practice before he joined the NHL Players Association in 2016. In 2018, he joined Major League Baseball Players Association, which he continues to serve as the lead negotiator today. Thank you, Bruce, for joining us today. I'm delighted to spend some time with you. And welcome back from the All-Star game. Hopefully my Mets start playing a little better in the second half of the season.
No promises. Thanks, David. Glad to be with you.
Hey, Bruce, to start with, can you just let the alumni group know how you got involved in sports law and how you developed the expertise you have in this space?
Yeah, I mean, it was really largely by happenstance. I went to Weil. I was a summer associate in 1985. I did not know at that time that they had any kind of sports practice. Turns out they did, going back to the mid-'70s when Jim Quinn and others were representing the NBA Players Association in a lawsuit known as the Robertson suit. My very first assignment as a summer associate at Weil was actually to write a memo on a matter for the MLBPA. Little did I know that I'd eventually be working there. And then when I started as a permanent associate in 1986, Jim Quinn remembered me, I think, from the summer, and also Jeff Klein. And my first case as a Weil Gotshal associate was for the United States Football League. We did an appeal from a jury verdict. I don't like to talk about it much since it's the only time I've ever represented a league as opposed to players. And then not long after that, we were starting up a big fight on behalf of the NBA Players Association, Larry Fleischer, who was the head of the union. And I got involved in that. And then, from there, it was really a constant in my work at Weil. We represented the NFL Players Association. We represented the NHL Players Association. I did lots of other things too, as you know, in addition to sports law. Did trials and a number of different areas, but the sports law was always a nice constant from literally the day I started.
Hey, Bruce, that's actually a good point, segues into my next question, which is obviously in addition to all the sports stuff, the Freeman McNeil case and the like. By the way, my daughter learned about the Freeman McNeil case during her sports law class at BU, your alma mater, by the way. But how did just the general skills as a trial lawyer, litigator, how have you used those skills? How has it helped you to become better at the job you have now as the lead negotiator for the MLBPA?
Yeah, I mean, when I started at the MLBPA, there was some talk from the other side that, I was just a litigator and not a labor lawyer. And, that's true to some extent. And I learned a lot about labor law from 30 years of representing those unions we talked about. But being a litigator has really been a tremendous preparation for this job in a lot of ways. I mean, for one thing, I'm an advocate. I'm an advocate with the media on behalf of our positions and our players. I'm an advocate when we meet with the other side and trying to convince them. You never really convince them of anything, but to give them our bargaining proposals and explain how we see the world and why we think they're justified. So advocacy is a big part of it, and then communication skills. I mean, I big part of my job is explaining, sometimes complicated legal and economic issues to, our constituency, which consists of players at all levels. And so, it's very much like being a litigator or a trial lawyer, where you take complicated material And your job is to boil it down for a jury or for a judge, and communicate it in a way that's understandable. So, that also has been very helpful. And then finally, just, the nature of being a litigator at a firm like Weil, and particularly a trial lawyer, have some experience with high pressure situations. So that's come in handy as well. And then I guess finally, negotiation, David, as you know, in litigation, more often than not, we settle cases, and a lot of our cases are very complex. And so, they result in very complex settlements. So, negotiating settlements in the litigation context is also good preparation for negotiating really any complicated issue.
Hey, Bruce, I've loved over the last 4 or 5 years reading about some of your successes, but can you share some of the achievements you're most proud of that you've been working on over the last 5 years?
Sure. And should make clear that these achievements are far from my own. My boss, Tony Clark, who's an amazing leader, and I can't say enough about his leadership. He's also intimately involved in collective bargaining, really everything we do. We have an incredible staff of lawyers and others. So certainly don't mean to take all credit or even most credit for the things that we've accomplished. But look, this union, as you alluded to in the intro, has a history, a very proud history. Really, not just, we like to consider ourselves not just first among sports unions, but really among all labor unions in the country. We view ourselves as having a leadership role. Since I started, which was almost 5 years ago, kind of went right into big battles with the league. In 2020 was, of course, COVID, which came out of the blue. It necessitated our negotiating a special agreement with the league on how to handle that, including thorny issues like how players were going to get paid, and then of course just dealing with COVID. I mean, we had like everyone else, we were taken completely by surprise, dealing with all the issues that affect players, the health issues, safety issues, the economic issues. And then for those who follow it, may recall that later that summer in 2020, we had a major dispute with the league over the meaning of that agreement, and in particular, the league's demand really that we give them approximately $800 million of our players' salaries to help them through the pandemic, which we declined to do. And we had a big, ugly fight, which ultimately we did not give them back that money, and obviously glad we didn't. So, and of course, got through the 2020 and 21 seasons, safely and in a way that really preserved the players' rights, preserved their service time. Then, as you said, 21, 22, our major league collective bargaining agreement expired. We began negotiating that, a year early, began preparing for it, years before that. Ended up, in a fairly rancorous labor fight where the league did a lockout. Obviously could go on and on about that, but, it was very, very high profile, very high pressure. Ultimately did do a deal without missing any games. Hadn't negotiated that deal, had to document that deal. And then, as you said, something I also wasn't expecting, which was no sooner was the ink dry on that than we decided to unionize the minor league players, which had never been done before. So went through the process of actually forming a union and then negotiating a first collective bargaining agreement for them, which we were able to do, which we finalized in spring training this year. Again, a tremendous accomplishment. We're all very happy about it. More importantly, the players are happy about it. So, really those three things, sort of the getting through COVID and the new collective bargaining agreement for the major leaguers, which I should say is so far working out really well for the players. We try not to get complacent, and things can change quickly, but that's been going very well. And then the minor leagues, as I said, is really historic, and it was really very rewarding in terms of what we were able to do for those guys.
Hey, Bruce, do you face particular challenges given how disparate the players are? If you think about it, you're representing superstars like a Max. I'm going to use my Mets as an example, but you represent superstars like Max Scherzer, who are really at the top of the salary scale, and they may have different interests than a rookie who's making minimum. And I'm curious about the kind of challenges it is and how aligned the union is, and whether you face issues because of how the wide disparity where people are in their careers.
Yeah, I mean that's true of all the sports unions. Sports unions are very different from more traditional labor unions, really for that reason, among others, which is, you have individuals who, first of all, they negotiate their own individual contracts, which is really different from every other union except probably the Actors Guild. And yeah, you have employees, union members who are at all different levels in terms of income, in terms of service time, in terms of their roles. And it's a challenge. I mean, it's been a challenge for all the unions. We, in our bargaining objectives in the last round of bargaining, we had bargaining objectives that were designed to benefit all those classes of players. And I will say it's extremely rewarding to see. You mentioned Max Scherzer, guys like him and Garrett Cole, and other players who were very involved in the bargaining, who are among our highest paid players, with long-term guaranteed contracts, and those guys fought like hell for the younger guys. I mean, those guys fought for us to get the minimum salaries up for the younger guys, to get what we call the pre-arb bonus program for the younger guys, to try and get earlier free agency. I mean, things that those guys would never benefit from. The veterans, with, as you mentioned, with the high salaries and the long-term contracts, were really fighting, for all of their teammates, not just people like themselves. Again, in many ways, they stood to benefit very little from these things. So, there's a team spirit in our union. Guys are cognizant of the long history. Guys are very focused on trying to leave things better off for the generation of players that come after them, just as the players who came before them did for them. So it's definitely an issue, but happy to say that the union has been able to remain strong, notwithstanding those challenges.
Bruce, you've been involved. I mean, it's just flowing further from the negotiations. When you were at Weil, you were involved in some pretty tough negotiations for players, and obviously that's continued as you when you went over to MLBPA. But what goes into preparing to negotiate something as massive as a collective bargaining agreement?
Yeah, you were asking earlier about litigation background, and as I mean, certainly if you're going to court, or certainly if you're doing a trial, I mean, we at Weil always prided ourselves as being the most prepared people in the room. I've hoped to carry that over into this phase of my career. I like to think when I go into a room, particularly with the other side and their lawyers and their billionaire constituents, that I am as prepared as anybody in the room. And to do that, we have a lot of smart people that I rely on. We have lawyers, we have general counsel who are much more intimate with the day-to-day details of various aspects of the collective bargaining agreement than I am. So I rely on them, and I get educated, but at the end of the day, they take a leading role on a lot of that stuff. I mean, we have issues from benefits to daily issues that affect players. I mean, complicated tax issues. I mean, you can imagine. And then we have economists. I mean, we have economists on staff. We have outside economists that we work with, and we're constantly analyzing the industry, analyzing trends, analyzing things that affect the business or could potentially affect the business. So there's a lot of that, which again, I'm kind of used to dealing with economic experts from Weil, and trying to understand what it is they're telling me, and so that's a big thing. And then the last thing I'll mention is just the history. I mean, I came into this around 5 years ago. There's 60 years of history with this union and various collective bargaining agreements. And we have people on staff who have been around for a long time, have been involved in a lot of that, and I've been involved on behalf of other unions. But really, just a lot lot for me to learn about sort of the history of not just the union, but history of a lot of these issues and prior iterations of collective bargaining agreements with respect to all these issues. So, I mean, one of the first things I did when I started was I read the minutes of every bargaining meeting from the last, 10, 15 years, try to get that in my head. So there's a lot to be done, but fortunately we have a great team and a lot of people to help.
Hey, Bruce, obviously there were a lot of changes this year when it came to on the field things. I, as a fan, I actually love them. I think it's been great for baseball. But what are you most excited for in terms of baseball's future, and what are some of the things that we can expect to see as fans in the coming years?
Yeah, so I mean, you're referring to the pitch clock. Pitch clock was an interesting issue. The owners really drove that through. We have a joint committee with the league where we have players on the committee, but MLB has a majority. So they theoretically were taking our input, but at the end of the day, they had the ability to do it. And a lot of our guys, were very wary about it, and it's an adjustment to the way they've been taught to do things their whole lives. So there's a lot of pushback, and there's still some issues that guys are unhappy with, some things that need to be worked out. But yeah, I mean, there's no denying it's been successful in terms of, the fan engagement. Fans seem to love it. I know the media loves it. So look, anything that grows the game, increases popularity is in the player's interest ultimately. So look, we hope to see that momentum continue. We like to think it's not just things like the pitch clock, but we have great young players, tremendous athletes who are out there doing exciting things. We did have the lockout last year, so we got a late start. There was really no marketing or buzz around the game up until the very beginning of the season. So this year we've had a full spring training and a full normal season of marketing. So that's been helpful. So in terms of the next couple of years, I mean, again, the league has continued to grow its revenues and grow its business. Hopefully, the momentum we have from this season will continue. On a down note, I'll say that our agreement ends after 3 more seasons. Our agreements are typically shorter than other sports unions, so it's hard to believe, but we're going to be at this again in 3 years, and it's very possible we're going to have another big labor fight. I mean, based on some of the things that you hear in the press coming out of the other side's camp. It's very possible it's going to be a big fight. We hope to avoid it and do a deal without missing any games as we did this time. And then, just in terms of general trends in the industry, I think most people are aware there's some issues going on now with RSNs, regional sports networks, that have the ability to possibly affect the league. We're keeping a close eye on that. We think it's ultimately going to all work itself out, but might present some short-term challenges. The league is talking about expansion. It's not going to be during the term of this collective bargaining agreement, but maybe the next one. There are other issues. Everyone's following the Oakland situation where they're moving to Las Vegas. But look, the future of the sport is bright. The players are exciting, and the labor issues. It's you hope to avoid a fight, but it's not always possible. There's a lot of money at risk, at issue. There's a lot of other issues that are dealt with. And so, we'll do the best we can for our players. Ultimately, the players are the ones who run the union. It's very often, misportrayed or misunderstood that Tony or I decide, what we're going to fight for, what our course of action. At the end of the day, it's all about the players. I mean, we are directed by the players. We inform them. We advise them. At the end of the day, it's really all about what they're willing to fight for. So, but I know I've gone on for a while, but short answer is future is bright, and we'll get through the labor situation one way or the other, like we always do.
And we'll probably spend the next 2 weeks till the trade deadline talking about Ohtani, maybe. We'll see. Hey, Bruce, do you think there'll be more games abroad? Like, do you think baseball will continue to play games in London and Mexico and other places to try to attract more interest about the game?
Yeah, I mean, I was just talking to somebody about that today. Some of the plans are in flux, but we just had London, which I was at, which was
huge success, right?
Very interesting. Yeah, I mean, the players were happy. it went very smoothly. It was very successful. I know they're playing games, I believe next year in Korea and Mexico.
It's great.
Possibly other places that I'm forgetting. There's been discussion about a game in Paris. Not sure, if that's definitely going to go forward or not. But yeah, I mean, much like the other leagues, there's a big initiative on the part of the league, and with our heavy involvement and cooperation, which they need to expand, international markets. I say expand, not necessarily have a team there, but to try and generate interest in other countries and try and generate have more fans, around the world. Some places it's easy. Japan is baseball crazy. Mexico and obviously Latin American countries, but international marketing is something that we're always involved in.
Hey, Bruce, last thing. Are you still jamming? That's all I want to know. Are you still jamming? What are you doing?
Yes, in my spare time to relax, I play guitar. I've been playing for 50 plus years. And when I'm between bands, which I am now, I still play every day, and I still love it. So, I mean, other than spending time with my family, I mean, that's my favorite thing to do when I'm not fighting with people.
It's great. It's great. Hey, Bruce, thank you so much for being here today. Really, really appreciate it. Always great to talk to you about baseball. Always good to catch up. And to the Weil alumni out there, please be safe. Hope you enjoyed this program, and look out for more programs going forward. But thank you all. Appreciate it.
Good to be here. Thank you.
Bye-bye.